Today's topic is Magnus Force and pitch movement. And this is Tips with Trev, the show where I give developing baseball players some easy tips to end their slumps faster and become a superstar sooner. Let's do it. All right, today we are going to talk about Magnus Force, and this is important to understand why a ball moves in the air, okay? You could just say, well, if you throw it from the side and you throw it, it's going to run this way, and okay, great, and I know how to throw a sinker now. And then you say, well, how do I throw a curveball? And then it's like, well, you got to snap your wrist and you got to get it to do that. Like, that's not the best way to start. I like to start with understanding why something is happening. Why is the ball moving in the air? Once I understand why it's moving in the air, now I can understand how to make it move the direction that I want it to move. And then once I understand how the ball has to be spinning in order to move the direction I want it to move, then I can figure out how to make it spin that way. Do I need to have my fingers in front of it or on the side of it or behind it, or what do I need to do? So let's start with, once the ball is out of your hand and it's just spinning in the air, why does the ball move the way it moves? Well, the first thing we have to talk about is gravity. Gravity is always there. As soon as the ball leaves your hand, gravity is pulling it down towards the ground. The entire time it's in the air. That's constant. That's always going to be there. So think about a fastball. If you're throwing a fastball from over here and you throw it directly straight, well, it moves a little bit and then gravity pulls it down some, and then it moves a little bit more and then gravity pulls it down some, and this is kind of how it would go. So you'd throw the ball, it would start out straight, and then it would fall down. So in order to throw a fastball to make it to the plate, you have to throw it kind of up a little bit, and then gravity pulls it down, and then it's still going up a little bit, and then gravity pulls it down, and now it's going about flat, and then gravity pulls it down, and now it's going down a little bit, and so it kind of sweeps this arc going to the plate. If you throw harder, then the ball's in the air for less time, so gravity has less of an effect on that ball. If you throw slower, it's in the air longer, so the ball has to travel up more and come down. So think about a curveball. If you just throw a curveball with no spin and you just lob it, it's going to do something like this because it's slow. If you throw a fastball, it's just going to go straight. Okay, so it's not going to go straight. It's going to go straighter than the curveball. It's still going to have a little bit of hump and come down to the plate. So that's the first thing to understand is gravity is always affecting the ball. So it always makes the ball move downward. So you're going to get, even with certain spins on the ball that aren't causing the ball to move downward more, you're still going to see a downward movement. For example, I'll get into this in a second, but sliders that spin like a football, they look like they break down, but they're not actually breaking down. They're just falling with gravity. Anyway, the next thing to understand, and really the purpose of this video and what I want to talk about here, because if I made a video talking about all of the reasons a pitch moves in the air, it would be way too long and all of you guys would tune out. So I'm going to keep it short and break it up into certain different parts over the next couple months to kind of explain this. But Magnus Force. And Magnus Force is simply described as when a ball is spinning in the air, what are the effects in the air? How is the air interacting with the ball, and how does that make the ball move? What does it create force around the ball? Where does it create force around the ball? So when a ball is traveling through the air, let's say the ball is traveling this way. There's air hanging out right here where my hand is. And so the ball is basically hitting that air and having to push it out of the way. So there's a certain force resisting the ball moving through the air. Now it's small, but there is a force there. That's why if you throw a ball, it starts off hard. And let's say it starts off 90 miles an hour out of your hand, but by the time it reaches the plate, it's only going 80 miles an hour. There's a force resisting it. So when you push air out of the way, the air has to go somewhere. So the air can go over the top of the ball. The air can go underneath the ball. The air can go around the sides of the ball. Right? So the front of the ball is pushing air out of the way, and air is kind of dispersing over the ball. That's just if the ball is not spinning and it's going towards just in this direction. It's pushing air around. So air is flowing over the ball at all times as it's moving through space. Well, if the ball starts spinning, now it's going to create some sort of different force pattern. And the ball always is going to move towards the area that the force is greatest. So if it's just traveling straight and it's having to push this air out of the way, then it has some speed, and the ball is going to be the force is pressing it against the ball, and so it's going to be slowing the ball down until eventually the ball doesn't move anymore, and now it's stationary, and now it just falls with gravity straight down. So when the force is directly against the ball, it's just slowing the ball down. All right, so now the ball's spinning. Let's say the ball has some backspin. It's coming towards the camera now. So the ball is spinning this way, and it's traveling towards the camera. Well, first thing that's going to be happening is gravity is always pushing it down. So you're going to have a little bit of movement this way. And then the air is pushing it towards me, so it's slowing down. So those are two forces that you have on it right now. Well, then the ball is spinning this way. So the seams, they're raised a little bit off the ball, obviously. So they grab some of the air, and they're pulling it with them. So it's pulling, this seam is pulling air from the bottom of the ball up, and then this seam is then pulling air from the front of the ball towards the back. And so you have this pattern where air is being pulled around the ball this way, okay? But you have air also coming over the ball this way and this way. So on the bottom, you're getting air that's being pulled forward, and it's meeting air that's being pushed backwards. On the top, you have air that's being pushed over the ball this way, and it's also having air that's pulled by the seams backwards. So this air is moving faster. On the top, this air down below is moving slower. And so what you get is high pressure on the bottom because you have air hitting each other. It's disrupting it. There's pressure. And so the air is hitting it on the bottom, and it's creating a high pressure zone on the bottom. The air on the top is moving very fast. So there's very little pressure. There's no resistance. So it's just sliding off the ball. So now let's change the angle. The ball is now traveling this way. So you have high pressure on the bottom, and then you have low pressure on the top. And so the force on the back of the ball, you get some force, high pressure here, low pressure here, so that's going to create force upward. And then the tail of the air is not going to go straight behind the ball. It's going to go slightly downward because this air is going to move fast and go here, and there's a lot of high pressure here, so it's going to meet, this is turbulent air, and this is smooth air. And so the tail is going to look like this. And so the tail indicates the direction of force of the ball, so the force is going to be upwards. That's why a ball that has backspin actually creates some lift. Now, it doesn't create enough lift to fight gravity and actually rise, but it's fighting against gravity. So the ball's not falling as quickly as it would if it weren't spinning or if it had the opposite spin. Now, we can talk about the same thing in a curveball. If you reverse it and the curveball is now spinning forward, well, you have air being dragged from the back of the ball to the front of the ball by this seam and air hitting it. So now you create a high pressure zone on top, and you have air being, passing on the bottom of the ball and being dragged from the front of the ball underneath the ball. So those forces are aligned. So that becomes fast moving, smooth air. And on the top here is slow moving, high pressure, turbulent air. And so you get direction of force downward. And then you also have gravity pressing downward, and you also have the air on the front slowing the ball down. So this curveball is going to slow down, and it's going to really break downward. So that's why you see 12-6 curveballs have such a big hump to them and drop off the whole drop off the table analogy, because all the forces are aligned in pushing this ball down. So it's dropping faster than what gravity would normally have it drop if it weren't spinning. Okay, so let's talk about to the side. So now you're going to throw a ball on the side, and it's spinning sideways. All right? So the ball's spinning this way. Well, you're going to have air coming from the back of the ball around the ball this way, and air hitting the front of the ball coming around it this way. So you're going to have turbulent air on this side of the ball, and you're going to have smooth air on this side of the ball, which is going to create high pressure here, low pressure here, and it's going to push the ball this way. So if I'm throwing it like this and the ball is spinning like this, the ball is going to move this way. Okay, so that's like a sinker. If you side spin a ball or a change-up where everyone's kind of thrown, dropped your arm and thrown on the side, and the ball kind of fades when you're going to try to throw a guy out at first base and you throw it away. I did that a lot. So that's why the ball is going to move that way. Now, if you have the other orientation, and I like to talk about the extreme cases. So when a ball has pure front spin or back spin, pure side spin, or pure gyroscopic spin. If it's gyroscopic spin, it means the axis is straight through the ball. It's spinning like a football or like a bullet, and it's just spinning like this. All right. Well, now in this case, you have air hitting the front of the ball, but you don't have seams dragging air over the top or the bottom of the ball, and so you just get the air evenly dispersed around the ball as it's spinning like this, And then this ball just, the only forces on it are slowing it down and pressing it down. And so this ball is just going to basically go straight and drop. And this is what you get with a lot of sliders. If you look at gyroscopic sliders that spin like a football or like a bullet, they just kind of drop. And it doesn't seem like they move, like they slide at all or anything like that. And that's because they don't move a whole lot that way. They just basically have no movement. But instead of throwing it with no spin and having a knuckleball where the seam could be disrupting the air in a certain orientation and having a knuckleball dance, because this ball is spinning like this, the seams create very stable air pockets around the ball. And so this ball is just going to track straight. This is why they developed bullets to spin with gyroscopic spin, because they wanted the bullet to go very straight and be very stable in the air. If the bullet wasn't spinning at all, it would wobble through the air because it would get off, it would get off balance and different forces would be created. And that's basically like a knuckleball. Or if you've thrown a football and it's not a good spiral and you see it wobbling through the air, the thing moves all over the place, kind of like a punt. If a punt's coming down, you're having to constantly judge where the ball is going to be, and that's why, because it doesn't have a stable spin. So that's Magnus Force. It's pretty complicated, but it's pretty simple if you think about it in these ways. Basically, wherever the front of the ball is spinning towards, so if you look at the front of the ball, if the ball is traveling at you, and where the front of the ball is spinning, it's going to be creating force in that direction. So here, on a backspin fastball, the front of the ball is spinning upward, and so it's going to be creating force upward. Here, if I side spin it, then the front of the ball is spinning to my right, and it's going to create movement towards the right. So that's a very simple way of thinking of Magnus Force. So if you want a ball to move to the left, then you need to spin the ball somewhat this way. You need the front of the ball moving somewhat that way. Now, I'm not going to get into gyroscopic spin and how the angles and all that stuff changes the movement of the pitch in this video. We're just going to start with the basics. What is Magnus Force and why does it work? Why does it create movement in certain ways? And I'll get into more depth in a separate video. But that's it. That's what Magnus Force is. The ball spins a certain way. The fact that the seams are on the ball, if the seams are raised higher, it creates more of this effect. The ball will move more. If the seams are lower, the ball will move less because there's more of a disturbance with higher seams to carry the air to create a larger high pressure and low pressure zone. And there's less of a disturbance to the air with lower seams to create those high pressure zones. So that's Magnus Force. Basically, the direction the front of the ball is spinning is the direction the ball is going to move, and that's a little bit about why the ball is going to move that way. So it's important, at least to me, to understand the why before I understand how to apply that to make myself better. So hopefully you learned something. I'll be doing more of these videos breaking down spin axis, spin rate, spin direction, why it all matters, how to utilize it and stuff like that in the future. But today was just about Magnus Force. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. That would help me out a lot. Leave me a comment about what you thought of this. Was it too in-depth? Was it not in-depth enough? Do you want more information, less information on this? Does it, anything like that? Let me know what you think. And if you haven't shared this video or this channel with friends of yours who could get some value out of it, please do that. I am trying to help as many baseball players and give as many people free information and knowledge as possible. So share this video with your friends, leave me a comment. More than anything, have a great day, and hopefully we get baseball back soon. See you in the next one.